Hello everybody and welcome to Forest School with Mr. E. We're back again in our new lockdown, ready to do some Forest School activities at home. Today what we're going to be thinking about is measuring. Now with it being winter time at the moment, perhaps we don't spend as long outside in our gardens or on our walks as we did, but to help us to get on with some activities outside, we can make our walks purposeful and go out there and do some measuring whilst we're enjoying some time in the fresh air. Most of you will be familiar with how to measure lines and shapes in books at school, and we're going to take those skills and we're going to adapt them and we're going to use them outside for measuring some trees that we find on our walks. So let's just recap on measuring and what we have to do when we measure. So most of you will be used to using either blocks to measure like this, or you might use a ruler like this. So here I have a line, just a short black line. I can measure that line using my blocks. I can take a block at a time and I start measuring from one end and I match it up and I continue going until I have the same number of blocks that finishes at the end of my line. So my line is 3 blocks long. Now, as you get higher up in school, up into years 2 and 3, you might start using a ruler to measure. So here I have my ruler, and we measure in a similar way. We take our ruler, we start at 0, just before the 1, and as the numbers go up, and we take that to the start of our line and we match it up, and then we go along our line and measure in centimetres. So we can see here that this line is 7 centimetres long using our ruler. Now when we're out and about, we might decide that we want to measure some sticks or something like that. So below I have a stick, and we measure this in exactly the same way as you would a line in your book. You would take your ruler, you would take it to the end of the stick, put the 0 on the very end of the stick, and count the number of centimetres along that stick is. So you can see my virtual stick here is 13 centimetres long. Now there are loads of different ways you can measure trees while you're out. If you've just got a ruler, you could measure branch sizes or the width of a branch or how big any leaves are. But with it being winter time, it's quite hard to tell which tree is which. So if you think you might struggle with that, you can download from the Woodland Trust website. So if you search woodlandtrust.org.uk, and you'll find what's called a twig ID sheet, and on that identification sheet it has lots of common British species of trees and what they will look like in this season of winter without any leaves, and you'll see the buds there. So you could even measure the distance between the different buds on the branches as well. But the things I'm going to show you now are techniques to measure what's called the girth of the tree, and that's the distance around the tree trunk, and also how to measure or estimate the height of the tree. And there's a couple of little tricks, little fun ways to do it. So we're going to get outside, we're going to go for a walk, and we're going to have a look at how to measure these trees. Now, before we head out, there's a tool we need. To measure the height of the tree, or to estimate the height of a tree, we need a tool like this. This is called a clinometer. Okay, and you use it, looks like a gun, doesn't it? But you use it like this and you point it towards the top of the tree like this. But obviously not everybody's going to have one of these, so we're going to have a go at making our own clinometer. So this is how we do it. So first of all, we need to gather our equipment: a paper plate or a paper circle, a post-it or something with a square corner. We'll need a drinking straw. We'll need some scissors and sellotape. We'll need a split pin. We'll need a pen or pencil. We need a string. And we need a blob of blue tack or plasticine or some kind of weight. First thing to do is fold your paper plate in half. Then cut along the fold so you have 1/2 of a paper plate. Take that paper plate and fold it in half again so that you have a nice clean crease straight down the middle. On the back of the paper plate, if you stick your drinking straw along the flat edge, then take your post-it and fold over one corner. Then you can open that post-it or square piece of paper back up again and place it so that the fold is on the fold line in the paper plate. Draw along the two edges of your post-it or piece of paper. This will give you two 45-degree lines. Put the split pin through the paper plate at the top of your lines and attach the string around the split pin. Now tie or add the weight to the bottom of your piece of string. This is the rear view, so you can see how it will look from the back. Okay, so we've come out and had a bit of a wander and we found this lovely old oak tree. So we're going to use some of our skills now of measuring to see if we can measure how big the girth of the tree is, that is the distance around the trunk of the tree, and also if we can make an estimate of how tall the tree is. Now, ancient trees like this old oak tree are very, very wide around the trunk. So we're going to measure this in an approximate way first of all, and then in a slightly more accurate way afterwards. So the first way in which you can measure the girth of an old tree like this is in something that we haven't been able to do a lot of recently, and that is by measuring it in hugs. Okay, so to measure a tree in hugs, you need to find a spot where you're going to start from, somewhere where you can recognize where you finish, and all a hug is putting your arms around the tree like this. Okay, so I've got one hug there. I keep my hand on so I know where to go up to. That was one hug. That's two hugs. Ooh. It's really awkward. That's three hugs.
And a foot.
And about a hand and a wrist. Okay? Now, if you know your height, or if you know your arm span, you can now estimate how far it is around that tree. So I know that I am about 1.80 meters tall, so I can estimate that 3 times 1.80 meters plus a little bit extra is going to be the girth around that tree. Okay? Second way we can do it is more accurately using one of our tools. So I have in my pocket here a tape measure. So if I take my number 1 end and I wrap it around, you might need some help with this one. Okay, back round to where it stopped. And we go again. And again. And again. So this is an estimate. I'm not being too overly accurate. You can be as accurate as you like. It's up to 72 there. This is a 1.50 meter measuring tape. So I took that round 3 times, plus my 72 at the end. So 1.50 meter times 3 is 4.50 meters plus 72 is just over 5 meters and 20 centimeters all the way around that tree. Now, it's not often you come out from your house for a walk and you're carrying a measuring tape, which is why we do the hugs one, because you can always take that information, hug in the tree, take it back home and work out the size of the tree when you get back home. So that's the girth of the trunk. Let's now move on to estimating the height of our tree. So to measure the height of the tree, we need to use some knowledge about triangles, particularly an isosceles triangle. So if you start walking from the base of the trunk away from the tree, And every now and then, if you stop, keep your back to the tree, bend over and look between your legs. Can you see the top of the tree? If you can't see the top of the tree, you need to keep walking. And you stop again, have another look. Can you see the top of the tree? No, keep going. And stop and have another look. Once the top of the tree comes into view, as you get your head as close to the floor as possible, a little bit further. Pause there, have a look, get right down. If you can see the top of the tree from that position, then you can now turn around and measure the distance between you and the base of the tree where you started, which will give you an approximate height of the tree. So you can measure this in meters, or you can measure it just in steps. So our estimate is that this tree is 42 steps tall. Now this method of recording the height of a tree works on the basis of the rules of triangles. And what we are making is an isosceles triangle. Now this works that if you're bending over with your head between your legs, the angle between you and the top of the tree, when you just about see it, should be around about 45 degrees. And that will make our triangle an isosceles triangle, which means that the distance between your feet and the base of the trunk will also be the same as the distance from the base of the trunk to the top of the tree. Let's try something a little more scientific. So to use our clinometer, we need to use the straw that we put on the back, and we're using that a little bit like a telescope. Okay, and we use that to spot the top of the tree from where we're standing. Now what we have to then do is try and make it so that the string falls down along our 45-degree line. If it falls on our 45-degree line, we're in just the right spot. If we need to adjust slightly, which I think I'm going to have to do a little bit to get it further back, I'm going to need to step back a bit or step closer. What do we think? Have we got it on the 45-degree line there?
Almost a couple steps back.
A couple of steps back. Okay, I can still see the top of the tree. Is that looking good?
It's annoying.
It's about there, isn't it? It's about there. So, now we need to measure our distance from where we are standing to the top of the tree, but we also need to add the height that we are off the floor. So, to help us, we have to lie down on that spot, feet where they were. We can put our clinometer where our head is, and we can measure in steps from the clinometer now. Our clinometer works in the same principle as measuring the tree by using our eyes as we bend over and looking through. We're trying to create an isosceles triangle, which is why we have that 45-degree angle on our clinometer. If we hold it at eye level and we aim it to the top of the tree, and we have that line dropping down on our 45-degree line, we are creating an isosceles triangle again. But this time, the isosceles triangle is from our eyes to the same height on that tree and upwards, which is why we added the extra stage in of lying down, placing the clinometer by our head and walking from that spot. That way, we can get a more accurate measure of how high the tree is. It wouldn't be fair if I did it in steps, because that wouldn't be the same steps that we measured. So we're going to swap cameras, or swap cameraman, and measure again. Okay, off you go. Counting steps towards the tree. 31, so a little bit less than last time, but that was a little bit more accurate way of doing it. So there we have it, a couple of different ways of how you can measure some of the large trees that you might come across on some of your walks around your local area. Now, when we measured the height of the tree there, we got two different figures. We got 32 and 42, something like that. So what I could easily do there is take an average of those two readings, and that would give me a slightly more accurate idea of how big the tree was. And from that, you could work it out in centimeters and meters. You could convert that into feet and inches if you wanted to as well, to try and work out what the actual height of the tree is. Hope that's given you a few different activities, different things you can do next time you're out on a walk. Take care, and I'll be back with another video next week. Have a great week, everyone. See you soon. Goodbye.